Go. So good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mitesh, and I'm your host for the evening. Tonight, you'll be hearing from the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries and one of their employer partners, Aon. The IFOA is the member body for the actuarial profession, and Aon is one of the largest actuarial organisations in the world. Our speakers today include Sonal Shah, an education actuary from the IFOA, Phil Sartan, who's head of early careers at Aon. We also get to hear from some Aon graduates who have recently started their careers as an actuary in a panel discussion. Before I hand it over to Sonal, I'd like to share my actuarial journey with you. As you can see, I'm not an actuary, but I might well become one. The main reason I didn't is that I didn't know what an actuary was until my final year at university, where I studied maths and stats. And by then, I'd chosen a different career path. This is one of the reasons that led me to start Success at School as a way of helping young people make better future career choices. I'm hoping by being on this webinar today, you'll learn what an actuary is and does at a point that will allow you to make an informed decision for your future career. Finally, if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat and we'll go through them in the Q&A session at the end. We have a lot of people on this webinar, so we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. I'm going to hand it over to Sonal, who's going to go through the presentation and talk a little bit about being an actuary.
Mitesh, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. So I'm going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes talking to you about becoming an actuary. And in essence, I'll cover a little bit about what actuarial work entails and why it may or may not appeal to you, and also what you need in terms of perhaps the sort of numerical background from a university perspective, and what you can expect during your career as an actuary. So this will just be a bit of an overview. Obviously, there's a lot more detail that we can cover, but for this short session, I'll just go through some of the basics with you. So I'm just going to get started straight away. Right, so becoming an actuary. Well, firstly, what is an actuary? Well, hopefully many of you will have heard of this profession, the actuarial profession, and probably even know some people who work in the actuarial profession at the moment. And if you have done so, you might well know that actuarial work is associated with maths. But I'd like to let you know, of course, that a career as an actuary is much more than maths, even though maths is a deep foundational requirement for becoming an actuary, but there is much more involved in this. So actuaries can be thought of as problem solvers and strategic thinkers who require a deep understanding of financial systems within different industries. You can think of actuaries as experts in risk management. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me now. I appreciate. I can see some messages saying it's a bit faint, so I'm going to try and speak louder. Please let me know if that's better. Actuaries are experts in risk management, and they use mathematical skills to measure probability and the risk of future events taking place. So that is, and predicting financial impact. So that, in a gist, is what actuaries do across a range of different fields, which we shall cover later. Okay, so firstly, I'm just going to go through some of the reasons why you might wish to become an actuary. Now, there are several, and I've just got a few of those on the slides here with me. So one of the first reasons is that actuarial work is generally known to be quite a solid career path to take, and there can be quite good opportunities for progression within the profession and within the different companies that you may work in. Also, not for everybody, but there might well be international opportunities. Now, it could come in the form of client assignments that might take you abroad or to different towns within the same country, even for that matter, or indeed any opportunities that you may seek for yourself, perhaps secondment opportunities, and so on. Also, actuarial work does involve the development of highly transferable skills. So these can be technical skills and non-technical or soft skills as well. Generally, it is known that the remuneration and financial reward for actuaries is very good, and certainly compares very well with a number of other industries. And the other point is job security. Now, generally speaking, actuaries have been in demand. And in fact, with the increasing number of areas in which actuarial skills are employable, this may well be the case in the future. And also, actuarial work does mean that you get to use your skills and talents to create a positive impact for people and businesses, especially given the range of problems that need to be solved. And finally, for this slide, anyway, this is a respected global profession. It's an internationally recognized qualification, and certainly one that travels very well in many, many territories around the world. So these are just some of the reasons as to why you may wish to consider becoming an actuary. Okay, but in order to become an actuary, what skills would you need? So we've already mentioned maths as a prerequisite, if you like a good grounding and a good ability in mathematics. But in addition, there are also other types of analytical skills that would lend themselves well to becoming an actuary. Of course, also there are project management skills, problem solving skills, because there are a range of problems, different questions that can arise in a work setting, and you need to be able to think about how you're going to manage the resource available and how you're going to solve the various different problems that may be put to you. In addition, communication skills are important, so both verbal and written. Often actuaries will find that they have to communicate ideas and sometimes a very technical concepts to a non-technical audience, and this could be through presentations or it could be through report writing. So communication skills are very important. Also, you do need strong business sense and commercial awareness, and this is because of the environment in which you work and the industries in which you might find yourself working in. There is also self-motivation. Now, this is important because many actuaries find that they have to juggle the work life with studying. And in order to become a qualified actuary, you do have to do a series of exams and pass them. And this would often take place while you're also working. Now, of course, some people do have exemptions from university, but you don't get the full set of exemptions from all the exams that you need to do to qualify, especially as a fellow. And therefore, you will find that getting this balance and having the motivation and the balance and skills will be important. And finally, you also do find the skills in terms of having ambition and the ability to work in a team can be very important. Often, of course, you would find that you're not working on your own, even though there might be levels of autonomy. And therefore, team working skills are really important in a variety of ways. You might find yourself working in small teams, large teams, within actuarial teams, perhaps with colleagues rather in other departments as well, non-actuarial departments. So this ability to work with other people is extremely important. Right, so in terms of getting started, so if you are interested in pursuing a career as an actuary and securing a trainee role, what a lot of employers tend to ask for, and again, it varies, of course, but on average, in general, you would be required to have an A-level in maths at grade B, or the equivalents. Of course, some of you might have done the IB system or any other systems for that matter, but generally speaking, you do need a high grade in maths. And then in addition, it may well be that you're required to have a good degree, so a good grading in a degree, probably in a numerate discipline, not necessarily, but something that does have a good component of numeracy involved in it. So I'm just taking this a little bit further. What would be considered a numerate degree? So there are a lot of different options, but it could be, well, one of the most obvious ones would be reading actuarial science at university, or indeed maths or any other branches of maths as well. Could be a statistics degree in economics and statistics, or accountancy, engineering, data analytics, maybe some forms of computer science as well, and also science degrees, things like physics, etc. And this is not an exhaustive list. These are just some examples. There are several others that would come under a numerate degree example. But like I say, every employer is different. So some might have more stringent requirements and some not as many. Right. Now, in terms of the actuarial journey, now this is just an example. Of course, everyone's journey is different, but generally speaking, most people who join the profession would join as actuarial students. So as I was saying earlier, you'd be working and taking your exams at the same time. And then upon completion of the exams, you become a newly qualified actuary. Now, there are two different levels at the moment of qualification. You can go up to the associate level or up to the fellow level. So it depends, but yeah, you become a newly qualified actuary. And thereafter, of course, as you gain more experience at work, work for several more years, you become an experienced actuary. And thereafter, of course, one's path can take many different forms. Some people go on to take on very senior roles as, say, chief actuaries, for example, within insurance companies, or chief risk officers, maybe also within insurance companies, or a different environment, possibly banking even. There are options to be financial risk officers, risk controllers. Then also some might go down even more technical, the more technical side. So things like becoming data scientists, and then possibly going into slightly non-traditional areas. So things like doing more machine learning, more climate and sustainability work, possibly some asset management, etc. So there are lots of different options. And in fact, on the next slide, we'll show this better. In terms of the range of fields in which actuaries can get involved. So we've got the traditional areas: life insurance, general insurance, pensions, of course, and then investment management. But on top of that, there are so many other areas in which actuaries work in and can get involved in. And in fact, again, even this list on this slide is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are other areas, and we could think of where actuarial skills would be very helpful and certainly be beneficial to the users of the work. So just to pick maybe a couple of these, data science is, of course, it's big and it's becoming increasingly so. And many actuaries do now work in the field of data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of those is applied to different industries. Also, areas like climate change and sustainability, as I've already mentioned, is so important. And there are companies who will look to actuarial skills now to help in this area as well. And then one thing to mention also is risk management. Traditionally, actuaries would find themselves working in, say, risk departments of insurance companies, for example. But it is worth bearing in mind that the actuarial skill set lends itself well to risk management in a variety of industries. So it doesn't just have to be the financial services sector, because the skill set to be able to analyze data, think about emerging risks, make projections into the future, do come in handy in almost every industry, really. So it doesn't have to be the traditional industries. And that's something useful to bear in mind anyway when looking for work experience, etc., that you can think broader than the more traditional areas of actuarial work. Okay, and then just a little bit about the graduate trainee schemes. And I appreciate we've got a few graduates from Aon anyway who'll be able to talk even more about graduate trainee schemes. So I'll just briefly cover that. When you are looking to secure a role, be it an internship or a graduate role, certainly make use of the resources that are available to you. So one of them would be looking at the Actuarial Careers Guide. So we have an employers directory that can be found on I think it's on the IFOA website, if I'm not mistaken. And you can certainly search for that online and have a look. And also, as part of your process in terms of thinking about the type of role you would like, look at the practice area, so things like, say, life insurance or pensions, etc. Think about region, like where you might want to work, so location, the type of company you might want to work for. Would it be a consultancy? Would it be an insurance company, a large company, a small company? So all sorts of different things to consider. And then especially for graduate roles, certainly, and well, internships as well, actually, they all have probably very tight deadlines. So think about the time of year when you're applying and make sure to do so early on. And also, as part of your preparation process, really, think about how you're going to be assessed. So is it going to be through producing a CV and a cover letter, having interviews, be they on the phone or online on a virtual setting like this, or in person? Will it be an assessment center? Could it be a day long? Would it be half a day? What kind of exercises might you be expected to cover during the day? So it's always good to know what to expect. And again, every employer will be different, though I suspect there will be similarities between most of them. And when it comes to thinking about the role of deciding between employers as well, do consider a range of different factors. Now, salary is just one of them, right? What you earn, and the general package, like what are the benefits you might get, for example, pensions, even maybe trying to think what else, like life insurance, maybe dental insurance, help with travel, different things, cycle to work schemes, all sorts of different things. But in addition, especially when you're training to be an actuary, you do want to think about the study support that you're going to get, because that's really important to help you with your qualification journey. So you can think about whether you will be getting study days and how many in each year. And these can vary, of course. And then also think about any exam successes, or how they get rewarded rather. What do you get for being able to maybe make use of an exemption or an exam success? Do you get study support in other ways? Are your tutorials paid for example, your study materials paid for? Do you get allocated a study mentor, etc.? And just trying to see on the slide if there's any other points here. Something about social life. Yes, as a graduate, you might think you want to possibly meet other people, the peers, think about the social life and the other aspects that are associated with working life and what that looks like for different employers. And I'm sure there's several other things, but certainly, focus on the whole package and think about what it is that you're getting, especially for graduate role. And what I'll mention briefly at this stage is if you're going for an internship, some of these aspects are almost negligible, as in they don't matter at this stage. You're not looking for study support from an internship, for example, for a 6 or 8 week period. But of course, if in the long term, an internship might lead to a graduate role, then it is worth knowing, or at least finding out what you could expect later down the line. And finally, in terms of where you can find out more, so there are a number of resources that you can make use of, and certainly there's lots of information online. This is just a handful, but the main areas you can look at are the IFOA website, so that's actuaries.org.uk, and in fact some of the further pages in terms of where you get more information about qualifying and becoming an actuary. You can certainly make use of emailing the career service as well. There's also a Facebook page you can look at, and we do have the careers guide or employer directory, where you can get a list of different employers and learn a little bit more about them and what they offer. And then there's an app as well, the More Than Maths app, that you can certainly use as a QR code, and you can find out more. But of course, also make use of any contacts you have, any other career service you have. I mean, attending a session like this is another great way to find out more. There might be some careers fairs you can attend. So I'm sure there's lots of different places in which you can find out more about the profession. So certainly just have a look and seek it. And I think that is probably me for time, but I'm certainly around. If you have any questions later on, please do ask. I shall be around. And I think, Mitesh, I believe I'm handing back to you.
You can do. I'm handing straight back over to Phil, who's going to talk a little bit about the employer partner that is Aon, and run your panel, run the start of the panel as well. So Phil, it's been a while, but over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mitesh, and thanks, Sonal, for that really insightful kickoff. Hopefully that's whetted everybody's appetite to hear a little bit more. So maybe if I start just by introducing myself. Apologies, I think the meeting just muted me. We're a large, so Aon are a large financial and professional services company, and we support a range of clients around the world, both from some of the smallest companies right through to some of the largest companies in the world, household names that you would have all heard of. And we help them manage their risks in a variety of different settings. So we have about 50,000 people, so colleagues around the world, that help us do that in about 120 countries. And those risks fall into a number of different brackets. So that includes commercial risks. So we are a very large insurance broker. So the men and women and people who sit between the clients who need insurance, so predominantly companies, and the insurance companies, and we help support those clients to get the right and appropriate cover for their risks and help them manage their risks on their behalf. We also help and support insurance companies as well, getting reinsurance. So that's insurance that they need as insurance companies. We have a large human capital and health business, so supporting organizations with their strategies around assessment, their rewards, the way they pay their colleagues, but also their benefits and their healthcare strategies for their staff. And then finally, in the part that we will focus a little bit more in our panel today is our wealth business, where we support a large range of companies with their pension schemes that they provide their staff and the investments for those schemes. So I'm joined today by three of our grads who will introduce themselves very shortly, who've joined us within the last couple of years and work within our pensions business at different locations around the UK. So perhaps if I start off by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves. So we've got Henry, Esther and Emma. So Henry, do you want to kick off?
So, hello all, I'm Henry, and just a bit of background about me. I studied mathematics at the University of Birmingham, and I've currently worked in the Birmingham office in pensions consulting for Aon for just over 2 years now. Prior to that, I completed an actuarial internship during 2019.
Wonderful, thanks for that, Henry. Esther?
Hi, yeah, I'm Esther. I did a maths degree at Durham University, and I joined Aon just over a year ago, but I also did a summer internship with Aon a couple years ago as well.
Wonderful. And last but by no means least, Emma.
Hi everyone, so I'm Emma. I started at the same time as Esther, so last year, but I had no prior work experience in the field. And I studied economics at the University of Liverpool and then did a master's in economics at the University of Nottingham.
Perfect, thank you very much. And hopefully for that person who asked the question about whether you can be an actuary having done an economics degree, we have our example here in Emma. Okay, so let's perhaps kick off with our first question. So obviously this event is intended to help students kind of better understand actuarial career paths. So Emma, how did you become aware of the actuarial career path?
I think so. When I was doing my studies, I really enjoyed doing maths, but I like the applied side of that. So I knew I didn't want to go into like pure maths, which is the reason I didn't do a maths degree. So when I was just Googling and speaking to my lecturers and things about options that were available, and actuary was something that came up just because of its problem solving nature, but still heavily involving quite a lot of maths. So I was actually considering either going into being an economist or an actuary, and I think both of them were quite well suited to me. And I think I chose the actuary one in the end just because I wanted to carry on doing exams and more formal learning once I left university, because I thought that would suit me better.
Awesome, thank you. Henry, how about you? What was your route in?
So for me, when I was 17, I didn't really know the career path I wanted to go down. Again, I just knew that I was studying mathematics, further mathematics and physics, so it was something very much down that mathematical route. And it just so transpired that at the time my mother's defined benefit pension scheme shut and moved to a defined contribution scheme. So I got interested through that, and I just started doing a little researching behind that, and that's when I discovered the role of an actuary. So then, as I say, I looked deeper into that and realised it was a good fit with the A levels that I was doing. So I carried that on, studied mathematics at uni, and then decided to look for summer internships in order to just get a real flavour of what it was like in the workplace. And that was when I made my mind up that this was the career that I wanted to pursue.
Awesome. And Esther, I know you did an internship as well in our actuarials team. So what made you decide to pursue that internship?
So I also similarly did a maths degree, and I hadn't heard of actuarial stuff when I joined my degree, so I didn't really know what route I wanted to go down. But I knew that I wanted to do a job that was maths based, and I was looking through different ones, and someone suggested, why don't you look at actuarial stuff? So I looked at it and I found the internship here at Aon. And whilst I did that internship, I ended up really enjoying the work that I got to do. Like, it was the maths that I wanted to do, but with lots of different things also involved. So obviously, so I do consulting stuff as well. So it was interesting to see that side of it, and yeah, the different applied routes also. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to go. So I'm going to ask you another question. I can see there's lots of questions in the chat about A levels. So can I ask you all what A levels you all did? So maybe if I start with Esther and we'll go backwards.
I did maths, further maths, physics, and chemistry for A level.
Awesome. Henry?
So I did maths, further maths and physics at A level.
And Emma?
I did maths, economics, and business, and I also have an AS level in government and politics.
There we go. So a rearrange, but definitely a maths theme coming through there. So Emma, what made you decide to perhaps choose Aon, and what's the culture like? Because I know that kind of matters to a lot of people coming now into the workplace. What's it gonna be like working for perhaps a corporate firm, a financial and professional services firm like Aon?
I think one of the reasons that I ended up like accepting Aon's offer was because like in the assessment centre, I just felt that everyone was so friendly and like really wanted you to do well and succeed. I didn't feel like anyone was trying to catch you out or anything. It was genuine conversations and people really interested to find just more about you and your past and also what you wanted going forward and if the role would suit you. I think since I've been at Aon, I've sort of realised that that is just the case all the time. Everyone always wants to help you. I just ask questions to everyone all the time, and no matter their level of seniority, people always have time to answer them questions. Sometimes spending just hours sat with you, helping you, which I found really useful. And that's something I didn't really expect going into like a corporate environment. I didn't think that people who are really senior would have sort of time to do that. But people are really helpful and make that time. So that's been really good. And I think being in the office and seeing people in person has been really nice as well. But it's also been nice to have that flexibility to work from home and stuff when you have personal things going on. So that's been really nice.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And Esther, obviously there's a wide variety of different kind of career paths you could have chosen, and obviously you chose to go down the actuarial route, but kind of were there other kind of paths you looked at? What really tipped the balance for you towards actuarial in the end?
So towards actuarial, I think it tipped it because I got the experience during my internship. Like, I would really say that if you wanted to go do an internship, absolutely apply for them because they're super helpful to get an experience of like what the actual job is like. I did the internship and I realized that this was the type of work that I wanted to go in. It had the right balance of maths so I could continue studying and working in a maths field, but also doing consulting bits, also working in a corporate environment instead of a university environment and all that sort of stuff. So I think it kind of tipped the balance in that I discovered I liked it rather than I discovered I didn't want to do the other ones.
Awesome. Thank you. Emma, what does a typical day look like for you? You're kind of a year or so in now. So yeah, what's it look like for you?
So at the minute I'm getting up quite early, to be honest. So I'm getting up. I get up really early just so I can study before work. So I try and study for like an hour at least before work most days, just because I like to do things in the evening. So I try and get to the office for like about 8 and then study for an hour before work, and then I'm in the office most days of the week. So I go into the office about 4 out of 5 days of the week, and then sometimes like we go out for lunch and stuff, which is really nice. And I think it's important to like socialize with other people in the team. So that's been really good. And then I usually leave the office, and then sometimes as it gets close to exams in like April, I'll study in the evening as well. But at the minute, I'm just a couple of days a week, maybe I do work a little bit longer, but most of the time, like I do like have hobbies or like I play in a band and things like that. So I enjoy doing that in the weeknights as well.
Awesome, thank you. Henry, you're a year or so further on. So how about you? What does your day to day kind of look like, and has that kind of changed and evolved over that kind of from that first year into the second year?
Yeah, I think it's quite similar to Emma, but I think the main thing is the way the work has slightly changed as I've progressed. Because early on there was very much a focus on making sure technical skills are right, developing those technical skills. And now I'm a little bit further. I'm then getting the chance to check others' work and being able to apply those skills I've learned and ensuring that they are shored up. And then there's also more of the consultancy role within the day-to-day. I'm now getting more exposure to drafting communications to clients and also having interaction with clients in client meetings. So it's sort of making the role a lot more varied as I'm going further into it. So day-to-day, I'm not really doing the same things every day. I'm able to come into a different working environment.
Awesome. It's great to hear that kind of progression and the role changing and evolving over time as you build that experience up. So kind of, I guess, jumping ahead a little bit, Esther, kind of what we've obviously got kind of 235 people on the call, lots of students on the call. What advice would you give to students who are perhaps thinking about pursuing an actuarial career and perhaps are beginning to research into what that could look like?
Yeah, so I would say like absolutely do research, reach out to people like us on a call or anyone else in actuarial stuff that you know, so you can sort of understand more what the job is like. I would say look into the different things that it involves. So it does involve studying, exams, and so you need to make a decision based on like everything around that. Yeah, I think sorry, I got lost in the question.
That's okay. I think that was very good. Kind of Henry, like obviously we've just been through kind of COVID. Now we're coming out of the back end. Things are kind of returning back to normal. But can you tell us a little bit more about kind of how that's changed, or what your kind of working practices over that time, and the way that we work with clients and the way that we work with our teams? Obviously, we just heard from kind of Emma about kind of being in the office, kind of choosing to be in the office for 4 days a weekish.
Yeah, so obviously when I first joined for my internship in 2019, it was in the office 5 days a week. So then when I joined as a grad through COVID, and now we've come out of the other end, it's in the Birmingham office, we're following a practice of doing 2 or 3 days in the office. So there's a lot more work now being done virtually, but we are still ensuring that there's that office time to ensure the development of more junior colleagues, and thus in turn ensuring that those skills are passed on so clients can benefit from that. But the one thing it has helped with is I've found there's a lot more cross-office working now. So before, when I was doing my internship and from when speaking to other people within the office that were working solely on single office-based clients, while I'm now working with people in London and Bristol, and I've worked with people in Scotland as well. So being able to bring that mix and that variety to clients is really beneficial, and it also helps with resource allocation. So nobody's overworked, and it means that we can deliver the best quality work that we actually can for clients while providing us with a great experience.
Awesome, thank you for that. Emma, kind of thinking about your career on perhaps a kind of more personal level, like what are some of your kind of your goals, particularly kind of your short-term goals and perhaps some of your longer-term goals?
I think so in the next year I'd be looking like to go towards like being promoted and moving towards, like as Henry says, like the check-in and going towards like developing like more junior colleagues, especially by the time next September comes around and there'll be another graduate intake. So that's sort of, I guess, over the next year. Sort of a bit more medium term is that I'll be working towards my exams, and hopefully, so I think like the average is about 3 to 7 years to qualify. I think I'm going more towards about 6 or 7 years, so that's sort of what I'm aiming for, about 6 or 7 years to qualify. And then after that, I'm not entirely sure really. I think like my role has changed and developed so much in the past year. I'm sort of just open to seeing what happens with that and seeing how stuff develops over the next few years to see which bits I'm interested in, which bits I want to pursue more. And I think because there's so much stuff you can get involved in and tailor your own career, it's really important to keep like flagging the things you are interested in so you can get more involved in them and tailor it as time goes on.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And maybe just a final note to finish on, Henry, kind of what some of the most exciting things that you're working on at the moment? What kind of really kind of excites you about some of your the work you've got?
For me, I'd say it's one of the specialist teams that I've joined, which is around GMP equalisation. So just a brief overview for anybody who's not quite sure about that. Essentially, there's a part of the pension called the guaranteed minimum pension, and unfortunately that wasn't equalised between males and females. So it's just making sure that everybody's getting a fair deal regardless of gender. But working on that and developing the teams and the new technologies that we need to work through that, because it's so new within the industry. So being able to see those things develop, and also my own skills then developing within that, I think it's a fantastic project to be part of.
Amazing. What a great note to finish on. Well, thank you very much for that. So I'm handing over to Miss Tash for our Q&A.
Hey guys, thank you very much for that. It was very insightful. We've had lots and lots of questions in the interim, so I'm going to try and pick out a few, and apologies if we don't get through every single question. We will try, but I'm conscious that there's a lot of questions to answer. Phil, I think this first one's probably going to be for you. There's a lot of questions on actuarial apprenticeships on offer for 2023. I know that you probably can speak about Aon and perhaps not the rest of your competitors, but are there going to be actuarial apprenticeships this year or next year?
Yeah, so kind of at Aon, they're on pause right now. So a couple of other firms I think are continuing. So I think we'll probably put some of the names in the chat. I know WTW are one of them. So there was we had kind of probably just over about a year ago or so, there was a decision to remove one of the qualifications that was being used for that apprenticeship. So that qualification no longer exists, or people are no longer able to sit it. So the apprenticeship itself is being redesigned by an employer group, actually led by Aon at the moment. So that will be concluding hopefully in the not very distant future, and that apprenticeship standard or approach will be kind of relaunched, and firms will like Aon will take a view then at that point about whether we want to continue with the actuarial apprenticeship or not. Certainly kind of our work in the graduate space is definitely continuing, and there's no let up in that in that space, but there are still a number of firms offering actuarial apprenticeships. Aon isn't one of them right now for this year. We may come back into that space in the future, and there's definitely a few conversations going on about offering some exciting things in that space, but none that have quite come to fruition yet.
And just continuing on that, like historically when you did, so there's a couple of questions about doing an actuarial apprenticeship versus going to university. Historically, when you did take on apprentices, do you think there was a different career? Did they have a different career path to the graduate, or
if they chose to, is probably the really simple option for that one. So some have decided to continue down the kind of the actuarial route, and having completed at the time when they existed completed the first couple of modules of the CIA qualification, or fully completed it, have then switched across onto the full actuarial qualification. Others have perhaps chosen to go down slightly different career paths. Some with Aon some not. So kind of very much kind of guided by them, and also kind of how they found the exams as well. I think if someone is keen to complete the full actuarial exams kind of offered by the IFOA, then that there can be really real value in doing an actuarial or a maths degree, because you often come in, particularly if you've done an actuarial degree, but even having done a maths degree, you do bring quite a number of exemptions then potentially into starting that career path, so that there will be fewer exams you need to complete to fully kind of pass that qualification. As an apprentice, obviously you do have to kind of sit them all, and perhaps you haven't had some of that structured teaching from a maths perspective, so there's a bit more effort required. Absolutely possible for the individual, but probably a bit more effort and learning kind of required independently, rather than perhaps being taught that kind of through a university kind of maths degree.
There's actually one question for me here, which says, given that I did a maths degree, why did I say I can't become an actuary? No, I could have become an actuary. I just chose not to go down that career path because I didn't know enough about it, because I only found about it in my final year. But quick one, there's a question here for Emma. Did you find the work hard as an actuary because you didn't study maths / further maths? And I think you may have answered this, but it would be good to just get a repeat. Like, you did a master's in economics, and then how then did you decide to become an actuary following a master's in economics?
Yeah, I've seen quite a few questions in the chat like about that. So I guess I chose to do a master's in economics just because I loved economics and I was really, really interested in it. And I think that's sort of key when I've seen people in the chat as well talking about like A levels and things they're picking to do. I think underlying it all, you have to really enjoy what you're doing, because that's going to make you succeed the most. You're not going to want to put all the effort into something that you really don't enjoy. So I guess that's why I went on to do an economics master's, just because I loved it. But then as time was going on, I sort of was thinking about my future career, and I knew that I wanted to carry on doing exams and things, and I knew I didn't really want to do a PhD at that time, because I was like, I didn't know fully what topic I would want to do it on. So then I started considering other avenues I could go down that involved like applied maths, which is why I came across like an actuary and started looking into that. But on the bit on whether I feel like I know less than other colleagues at work, I think in the job I don't think I do, because I think like I still have a lot of base knowledge. I did a lot of stats and a lot of maths in my economics degree, let alone my masters. I think when it comes to the exams, I did have one exemption, but if I had done a maths degree, maybe I'd have had more, or maybe I'd have covered some more of the content before. But I don't necessarily think that has set me back much, really, because there's bits I know about that other people don't, and I have a general understanding of economics which helps me day to day as well, which some people haven't had that in their degree. So I think everyone has got bits that other people don't know. Does that make sense?
I think that does. Thank you very much for that. There's a question, and maybe our panelists could answer it. Is that are you tackling in your work any societal issues at the moment? If so, what are they? Are you to better society? Because I think Sonal mentioned that actuaries are tackling like climate change and things like that. So are any of you working on anything that has an impact on society?
I'm happy to take this one. So even though I'm not necessarily working on any such project at the moment, but I can certainly give some examples. Like, there are some actuaries who currently work for, it might be the World Bank or another such organization, where they're working on helping the UN with some of these sustainable development goals. So there are a range of goals that the UN has, things like maybe helping to eliminate poverty, increase, say, clean water going, that many people don't have access to at the moment, rather. But there are a number of aspects where data analytical skills, actuarial skills come into play, just to think about big data, big picture, making projections, trying to help with risk management, mitigation, etc. And then also so not in my current job, in a previous job, I did some work with some NHS, like local health trusts, and helped with a range of, better design of healthcare schemes. Again, from the data side of things. So they're just a couple of examples, but obviously happy for anyone else to chip in with anything you may be working on or aware of, I guess.
Yeah, the one thing for me, I've not worked directly for that team, but I've worked with them in terms of due diligence team, risk settlement, working with insurers, insuring the pension liabilities. So within that, with more emphasis being placed on environmental and social reporting, there's report work within that where we do due diligence on insurers and look at the investments that they make and are the responsible investments, and relay that to the trustees and help them make a decision based on those grounds.
Absolutely. Again, I guess more broadly as a firm, we've definitely got kind of actuaries working in spaces such as responsible investing is a huge area, huge growth area. Something a lot of pension schemes are looking at, and we're being asked for advice on. We've got the others who are looking at areas like climate change, particularly if you look in the reinsurance business, so insurance for insurance companies. There's real significant risk in the climate change space, and actually the reinsurance industry want to kind of lean into that and want to look at how they kind of can provide more support to ultimately kind of reduce kind of the impacts of climate change, because something that where they're often insurance for insurance companies is being used is where you've got large natural catastrophes and where that risk then has to be spread across the market. It can't be met by one or two companies. So there's a huge number of opportunities, and those are only growing right now. Back to you, Mitesh.
Thank you, Phil. So there's another question for you, Phil. I suppose there's a lot of questions on university courses. I'm going to try and kind of collate them into like one simple question. I know that we mentioned that you don't have to do maths to become an actuary, but typically, what percentage of your intake have done maths as a degree in your actuarial intake?
I'd say it's quite a number. I'd need to look down at my list, but probably I would say at least half will have done maths or actuarial science, but there's a large number who haven't done that as well. Most people, certainly at Aon, tend to have done a science, technology, engineering, or maths degree. So a degree with some maths in it, because ultimately it's a maths-based career path. So you need to kind of love maths and be strong at maths. We have from time to time had people who have done kind of a history degree or something and gone and done maths. They've always having done a maths A level and been passionate about maths. But yes, the vast majority of people have at least done a STEM degree, and then quite a few of those will have done a maths or actuarial science degree, or at least have a substantial amount of maths in that, to know that actually that is something they enjoy and something they really want to build a career path around. Because one of the great things about being an actuary is that you get to keep using your maths and using it in a real way that applies to the real to the real world, and it's a reason a lot of people kind of choose that.
So if you like doing stochastic processes, and probably think about actuarial degrees.
Absolutely.
Phil, I think there's another question. Well, for you, I suppose. And how many so assuming there's no exemptions, how many exams are there before you qualify as an actuary? And what happens if you fail one of the exams along the way?
So I'll answer what happens if you fail, and then I will turn it into one of the actuaries without bringing out my spreadsheet. I wouldn't know it off the top of my head, whereas I'm guessing Son or one of the others will definitely know it. But in terms of failing, it's a completely normal thing. I don't think any of us would get away from it. Some of the exams are pretty tough. There's a lot of support available for them in terms of kind of you're going through a process that that everybody else on the team that you're working with is either going through or has been through, or the vast majority have been. So there's a lot of support internally. There's support from learning coaches. There's lots of training and development that goes on throughout. But people from time to time are going to fail. And essentially, if you fail, you then kind of do some more studying and you'll resit it, and some people might sit it a couple of times. There is a sensible point at which we might say to someone, look, you've said it X number of times and maybe this isn't quite working for you, and looking at what more we can do to help, or whether they want to kind of pause the studies for a bit. But for most people, they'll find they will fail at least one exam along the way. There are a group of people who don't, who are smart and maybe probably a little bit of luck in there as well. But there's definitely kind of a lot of people who study the qualification do fail at least once along the way. But Sonal, do you know the number off the top of your head of exams?
Oh, do you know, I'm afraid not. I think it's between 12 and 15, but I can
Jump.
give you a very quick, I'm sure actually one of the
Yeah,
recent
don't want me to
rankings. Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So there's 13 exams.
13.
And speaking about failure, so I failed 3 out of the 4 exams I've sat this year. And having got a first class degree, a distinction, and a master's, like I'd never experienced anything like that before. And like, yeah, it is really hard to sort of just pick yourself up and move on. But like Phil says, like everyone has been through it. It's just, it doesn't, in a weird way, it doesn't feel like you have failed, even though you are going to be resitting. So you do exams in April and September. So next April I'll be resitting the exams I've already taken. But I think it's just about trying to pick yourself up and just keep going, and people will always be around to support you. I think, like Phil says, there has to get to a point where like you question maybe whether this is right for you, and whether because you do make a large sacrifice to be doing the exams, it takes a lot of time, and whether it's something you do want going forward. But if you're adamant you want that, the support will be there for you to do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just a few questions for the grads. How do you balance your time on the job, studying for exams, and personal time when you're trying to qualify? Maybe Henry or Esther.
Yeah, so it's definitely a difficult balance. And one of the things I find is you have to try and be very strict with yourself. So I try and timetable everything out to ensure that I've got enough time for everything, and also include those break periods, because it is very easy to just end up allowing things to slide, and then you sort of get a little bit panicky closer towards the exams. So it's just about, as long as you're disciplined and strict with yourself, then it's very possible to maintain a decent work-life balance.
And I guess we saw that with Emma, didn't we? With you doing your hour of study before work every day, so you've left your evenings free. So it's about coming up with what works for you and prioritising around that. Natasha, I guess we've got time for one or two final ones.
Let's do one last question before we wrap up. Yeah, there's a question here which says, what do you like most and least about the job? And maybe finish on what you like most, and if you want to say what you like least, you can.
Emma, do you want to kick off?
That's difficult. I guess one of the things I found difficult is that because I'm constantly learning new things all the time, some days I feel like I've just learned so much, I still don't know anything. And at times, like I struggle with that because I feel like it's hard. But then when you actually come to reflect, you realize how much you have learned. But in that moment, like that can be quite difficult. But then one of the things like I enjoy the most, I guess, is the variety of the job, and just how much future stuff I can see myself getting involved in that is different to what I'm doing now. It's not something that every year, each year as your career progresses, you're going to be doing the same thing, which is something I really enjoy.
Esther?
Yeah, I think I'd be the same as Emma. I think the thing that I maybe don't enjoy so much is the fact that you have to try and balance the working, the social life, and then also studying. Like at times that's quite difficult. And you will end up studying when you'd rather be outside having a barbecue, but it comes with it, and that's a decision that you know you're going to have to make. But I think what I enjoy most is just the amount of stuff that you can get involved in. Like I work on so many different projects and I'm doing so many different things that are just really interesting, and like you can just try so many different things to see what you like, so that further down in my career I know maybe what I wanted to specialize in, because I've had so many opportunities to try different things.
Henry.
Yeah, again, I think I'll just echo the work-life balance. I think at the start it was difficult, but now I'm beginning to get a handle on that. So at the start it is difficult, but if you persevere, and it's just about keeping your eyes on the prize, essentially, you know where you want to get to, and just keep focused on that, and it will work out. You will get a handle on it. I think the thing I enjoyed most, as I say, the new innovations that are coming through. So the new team I've joined with the GMP equalisation, because we actually had a Q&A with somebody quite senior in the business last week, and he said even around the late 90s they're saying all pensions it's begin to come to an end, and he said 25 years later we're still finding new things that are coming up, and we're still innovating and still finding new projects. So just being involved in those is brilliant.
Well, Sonal, do you want to do your what you like most? And
yeah, but what I'll do actually, because obviously I've been working a number of years, so what I'll do is just sort of bring together what Emma, Esther, and Henry have said, around the themes of variety, and also how much is still being innovated. And I certainly get the opportunity to see that. So I sit in on a number of committees and boards, and get involved in working with a huge range of stakeholders. And it is so interesting to see not only the variety of work, but also how much thinking that there still is, like how much effort people put into the profession in terms of thinking about better ways in which problems can be solved, and trying to create a better product or give a better service to the end users. And the end users tend to be, well, so many, could be the government, could be, well, just customers, the general public, etc. So it is a satisfying profession from that perspective as well, that you really do get to impact a lot of different people through your work.
thank you, Sonal. Just like to say thank you to Phil, Henry, Esther, Emma, Sonal for being our hosts tonight, and thank you to our parents, students, and teachers that have attended. Hope you found this session informative, and you all want to go out and get a career as an actuary tomorrow. We are recording this session, so if you've missed anything, we will put it up on our YouTube channel or distribute it by email. And if you need to know any more information or got any other questions, please send it to us, and we'll endeavour to get those questions answered. Thank you all, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.